Perfect. With that, very warm good evening. Actually, I would say, because we're sitting in Delhi right now. It's quite cold, to the Oxford Qualifiers. I congratulate you all for signing up for this. It's actually one of the most prestigious debating tournaments in the world. I don't think I have to introduce Oxford Debate. It's the same room that you will see Shashi Khattarur giving a speech in. So go look that up. But glad to see you all over here with us, all set to get trained. Right? So we will follow some ground rules as we go. If we want to say something, then we will raise our hands. And we will keep stopping the training from time to time to let you speak out on what you want to say. Okay? Because I saw nearly 30 hands up, I'm going to spend a minute or so introducing our company, our actually, that's what I was thinking, that I don't think it's about the company anymore. It's really the community. So you are pretty much sitting with us over here for the Oxford Qualifiers, which Ideal is hosting. The finals will be at Oxford Union, and 8 of you will get selected to go there. But before we begin, I do want to make sure that you all understand that the idea is that I don't think you're so much a part of a tournament. You are now getting inducted into the community, especially the ones who are joining in new. So we've been doing this for last 2 years, which means that we've got some sort of credibility and a lot more wins at international tournaments. So students who are joining in this year, this session for the first time, I'm just recapping what 2023 was for us. We had the breaking team and best speakers at Yale. We had the breaking team at finals in 22 as well as 23 at LSE and Oxford Union. Breaking team for Kings, silver finalist for Imperial, youngest team member represented Team India at Harvard, and literally the ISDS national camp that selects the Team India, 50% of them were ideal debaters. So we're becoming a part of a community that is very strongly fixated with making sure that their opinions are well heard, and speaking and debating is a great way to do that. And Kamal, can you just make sure that people stay on mute when they're not spoken to? With that, I will just move on. Just before we get started, I'm iterating this once more. All of you will please be on mute because these are very sharp, high-paced sessions. So keep yourself on mute unless you want to say something, raise your hand. Firstly, like I said, are you all teamed up with a person from the same school? Are you all teamed up with a person from the same school? That's a checkpoint you should do. Yes, lovely. If you're not, you're going to write to us at Hello Ogly or WhatsApp us, right? Did you all receive the official welcome mail? I saw some back and forth happening earlier. If you haven't received it, you are again going to drop us a mail, because what we have done is we send an official welcome mail to all of you on your registered email IDs. What tends to happen is sometimes these mails, because you're coming in for the first time, or if you haven't marked us properly, then they might tend to go to your spam folder. We all understand what a spam folder is, right? Yes, I know you are all savvy. So please go and check your spam folder, but don't worry about it. It was a generic mail just to get you started on what is the Oxford Union debate, why is it so prestigious, what is British parliamentary. All of it will get covered today also. Okay, so don't worry about it too much. But the fact is that I do want to make sure that you're receiving our mails. It's important for your certification as well. Correct? And I'm assuming all of you are a part of the official WhatsApp group. That's how you got the joining link, because we haven't circulated it anywhere. But just in case you're not, just in case you gave a number of a busy parent who's going to travel for the next 3 days or the next few days till 20th, please have the right number added. Okay, these things tend to happen because some of you are very young. We are starting Oxford Union from grade 7 onwards. So sometimes I might have given dad's number, mother's number, but if your grandmother is home all the time, whoever is going to have access to that phone and access to you, please make sure that number is added. Yeah, are we good with that? Is the pace okay? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I just want to make sure that the pace is okay with all of you, right? Yeah, we are good. Does anybody want to say something? Good. Okay, lovely. So when you do want to say something, as a thumb rule, what we do is we sort of keep our individual issues to the Ogly number. Anything relevant for the group, we do the conversation here. Yeah, Suryansh, you wanted to say something? Please feel free. This is interactive. So feel free. Do you want to say something? Or Kamal, are they able to unmute themselves?
No, only ask him unmute.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can use the chat window, but Kamal, you can please feel free to unmute them all. Keep yourself muted, folks. I'm hoping you will discipline yourselves there. Viren, I'm just repeating this once more. You please make sure that you're writing to the Ogly number or texting us on the Ogly email if you have any issue, okay? Right now, in a session of 109 children, I will not look into individual concerns, right? Otherwise, we'll eat into the training time. Okay, with that, what I'm going to do is I'm just putting the hello email ID over here. Kamal sir, you can put the mobile number so that everybody is comfortable. Yes, Akshat, quick last question from you, and then we go on. Go ahead. We're not able to allow them to unmute. Are you all able to unmute yourself now? Nitisha, just give it a try.
I am. I think some people aren't able to. Just one second.
Yeah, I just allowed them to unmute themselves. They're not able to do it. Kamal, can you look into it while I just quickly introduce the trainer for the day? With us, we have Nitiksha ma'am. Most of you know her as the lit grad who's also now writing an amazing research paper for her PhD that is going to happen shortly. But more than that, I think Nitiksha is a person that I know is debating actively on the weekends so that she's sharpening herself in the capacity of a debater as well as an invited judge. On the weekdays, she's mostly preparing you all, right? And it's a weekday on a Monday. So thank you, Nitiksha, for taking out the time. She has recently, Nitiksha, there's such a long line of credentials for you, but I'm just calling out a few if you allow me. She bagged the seventh best speaker prize at IGSM Championship in 2022 and was the invited adjudicator at Frank Thakur Das and Ihsan ARSD, right? Apart from being an invited judge at Stephens. So you are in good hands, trust me on that one. But yes, please make sure that you keep engaging with Nitiksha ma'am as she trains you through the day. Kamal, can you please confirm if they are able to unmute themselves? Okay, don't worry. While Kamal sir sets that in order, just try one of you. I think Akshat, could you try unmuting yourself? Can anyone try unmuting themselves? You're not able to do it? No, that's a tricky one. So Kamal sir, let's give it a try. While we keep the training going, if you have something very urgent to say, just put it on the chat. Otherwise, we will anyways just resolve this in a bit. Nitiksha, over to you. Please carry on.
Hi, yes. Hi, everyone. I formally welcome you all to the Oxford training sessions. And we'll be meeting for 4 consecutive days now. And there is like a very elaborate sort of a program that we have and the training. And what we're going to cover in each of the sessions is something I'm going to begin with. So before we get into the format or like the technicalities of the tournament itself, I'll just share my screen with the deck to show you what the training plan looks like. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen. All right. Is it visible? Can't hear you.
Yeah, Nitisha, if you can just move to the slide before the training program. There's just one more thing I do want to share with the students here. All the material that is getting shared over here will be shared with all of you. Nitisha, just move up to Shivansh and Anvi's slide. And what I do want to make sure is that, because we've done this for 2 years, we've had wins in 2022 as well as 2023. So these are the regional winners that we had from India who were at Oxford Union. I wish you the very best with that. Over to you, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So what I'm going to be starting with is give you an idea of what we need to do over these 4 days. Before we get ourselves into like the technicalities, it's better to just understand where we are in terms of the training plan and how it's laid out. So give me a second. Also, just one very important thing is that you need to be very vigilant when you're listening, and like you have to come with full attention span when you come to these training sessions, because it's like the PP format is not tough, but it's tricky. So you need to understand it. So basically, how we're going to go about our trainings is by just give me 1 second. I don't. Can you see my screen?
Nitisha, allow me to share on this one, please.
Right. Okay.
Okay, all yours.
Okay, yeah. So basically, this is what the training plan is going to look like. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of orientation, which should not include, but is which should include, but is not limited to, let's say, talking about the format, as in how many qualifier rounds are you going to have, how does this team work, and what is it that you can do in terms of preparation before the tournament starts, besides the training sessions, those kinds of things. Followed by that, we're going to dive right into the format technicalities, as in what is this format, ma'am? How does this team work within a debate room? How do four teams come together at all at once? So those kinds of things I'm going to clarify. By the end of this session, then by 7:30, all of you will know what this format entails in terms of what a debate room looks like in the BB format, what you're supposed to do as a team in the BB format, and the technicalities of what kind of topics you will get, how much prep time you will get, so on and so forth. So much for today. In the second On the second day, we're going to be starting with speaker roles. And speaker roles, again, like, this is a more nuanced understanding of how BP will work. So the BP format has like an arrangement of speakers, all of which I'll tell you about today. But the next time we meet, I'm going to detail it out. I'm going to tell you how each speaker is supposed to deliver their speech, how you're supposed to coordinate, how you're supposed to think about a topic, so on and so forth. On the second day, we also cover the judging criteria, like what kind of judges do you have, what should be your expectations from the judges, how do they judge you, and on what basis. Then on the third day when we meet, you will have a lot of foothold on, like, you will have some foothold in the format and in terms of understanding this part of debating wherein BP format is involved. And so on the third day, we will be in a comfortable position to start a little bit of practice. This would look like some collective drills that we can do. So I will come up with a topic. I'll give you guys space to talk about certain, like, from specific sides on specific motions. So I'll give you enough of practice and feedback so that you know how you're supposed to deliver your material during the tournament and how it's going to be received by the judges. All right, so some insight on that. Probably like a foretaste of sorts on what your debating journey is going to look like through this tournament. And then on the fourth day as well, we just do a little bit of training, different kinds of training, different kinds of drills. We try to cover at least 2 3 topics so that you have a well-rounded understanding of uh, what kind of topics you're going to get. All right, I'll give you the right kind of references for where you can go on the internet to educate yourself more besides the training sessions. So rest assured. Is the training masterclass schedule clear to one and all? Can we have a thumbs up, some sort of a confirmation? Also, use your cameras. An hour-long commitment is really no commitment. Okay. All right then. I think so I'll theoretically try explaining British parliamentary, and then for a while, I'll switch to my whiteboard to explain the format a little bit. I'll need that. So basically, what is going to happen in the British parliamentary debate is that, and make notes actively, okay? Don't pretend to be these geniuses who remember everything you're going to forget. So make notes. In every round, you're going to go against 3 teams all at once. So how the British parliamentary format is different from any other format is that generally you have a side going for the motion, you have a side going against the motion, you have a judge, end of story. That's how simple a debate room looks like. In the British parliamentary format, there's 4 teams going against each other all at once in one room. Each team has 2 members. So let's assume you have one judge in the room and you have 4 teams. How many people in a room then at once? Put it in the chat. Easy math. Yes, perfect. So we have about 9 people, and this is the least number of people you'll have in a room. Maybe sometimes you have 3 judges, and sometimes you have 3 judges, especially in the advanced rounds. But then, so 9 people are going to be there, which means that 8 debaters in one room at once in the BB format. All right. Now, does this mean that the topic is going to be debated on from 4 sides? Obviously not. You can't have 4 sides to a topic. Can you? How many of you think it's possible? Is there any other side possible besides a proposition and an opposition? There's no such possibility. So what essentially happens is that, I'll tell you how this works and what these teams are supposed to do and how they're going to contest each other. now that we've set the ground for how what BP format looks like to some extent. But before that, let's look at a couple of technicalities which happen before you go into the debate room. So what you do after you are in the debate room is for us to discuss in like 5 minutes down the line. But how long for how long does your prep time last? How do you get motions? How do you deal with it? This is what being in a PP tournament looks like. You're going to go through 3 rounds as far as this tournament is concerned. Qualifiers on 20th. You're going through 3 rounds. The first round that you're going to be participating in, you'll get the topic. Topic is also called a motion. All right. So when I say motion, it means the topic. That you will get the topic 15 minutes before the round starts. So if my debate is supposed to start at 7:15 p.m., I get the topic along with my teammate at 7 p.m. This means readiness and like being close to your devices is extremely important. We don't want you to be saying, hey, I missed motion declaration. Can I get 5 minutes extra? Not happening. It's a very standardized sort of a measure wherein if you miss motion declaration, you miss it. So that's why if we tell you that motion declaration will happen at 7 p.m. sharp, be on the Zoom call. All right. And then we declare the motion. We give you space to clarify any doubts that you have about the motion. Ma'am, I don't understand this word. Ma'am, I don't understand what the motion means. Could you explain? Ma'am, how are we supposed to go about this? All of those questions have to happen within 2 minutes of motion release. And then we send you to prep, which lasts for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, regardless of where you are, you have to come to the debate room. No extra time is permitted. All right. That's what the BP format looks like. Now you might think 15 minutes is too less. This is too intimidating. Trust me, it's not. I'll tell you how to case prep and how to come up with a good case, not in 15 minutes, but 7, if you just learn the structure well. All right. I think now for a while, we'll just stop sharing screen. Probably I'll try sharing my screen with the whiteboard and then come back to this figure just to make things easier.
Chantelo, your hand is up. Do you want to try unmuting? Otherwise, just put your concern in the chat, please. Take a stop.
I think we should break right now for a minute and take questions, because once I get into explaining the format, it'll take me 5-10 minutes before I stop talking. Any questions? Feel free. None? All right.
There are 4 hands up, Nitiksha. There are 4-5 hands up. Folks, if you're not able to unmute yourself, though we've corrected that, just put it on the chat. Arnav, Ahan, Adya, Rian, Kanish.
Yes, in the chat. Okay.
You're able to unmute.
Hello, so, can I ask?
Go ahead.
I think, okay, yeah, I think let's just respond to the question in the chat first, and then I'll come to the ones who want to verbally ask a question. So the first question from Ahan is, ma'am, will the government teams work with each other? I am going to come to that. Format hasn't been explained yet. Ma'am, will we get internet for prep? Not necessarily. You don't get access to the internet, but you get a very like solid structure from me about how you can think in 15 minutes. So it shouldn't be a problem. Will the 2 minutes for explanation be taken out of 15 minutes of prep time? No, they won't be. They are external to your prep time. Are we going to be provided the recording of all the lectures? If you mean the training sessions, yes. All right. Now I'll take a question from Ahan. Yes, Ahan. Not able to unmute?
Just put it in the
okay.
Chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Akshat, are you able to unmute? Okay, if you guys aren't able to unmute, just like put it in the chat. I think that's also more convenient for me because I can answer all the questions all at once.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can now.
Yes, ma'am. My question was, we actually asked my team members' teacher beforehand if different schools would be allowed to have same students like come from and form a team. And
individual team formation concerns towards the end, but just as a thumb rule, Oxford Union doesn't allow students from 2 different schools to be paired up together. Or 2 different students from one academy coming together and the academy having different schools. School is an institution, so we'll have to go with that.
Right.
Any other question on the brief format explanation that ma'am did? Kanish, go ahead.
We will send a welcome email. Please text us. Don't ask logistical questions right now. Let's use this hour to understand the format. So ask me questions related to the format, related to debating. Okay, I think we've responded to most of the questions. If you have more questions, put them in the chat. I'll definitely come back to them after I have explained the format a little bit. Also, because a lot of your questions are just about the format, it will be clarified once I start explaining the format at length. So everybody can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically what's happening here is that there's 4 teams. How do 4 teams work? So let's say this is room 1. There's always going to be like some sort of a nomenclature for rooms. In room 1, you're going to have a side OG, you're going to have a side OO, and then CG and CO. This is short because I can't write too much, but this is opening government if you're making notes. OG stands for opening government, OO stands for opening opposition, CG stands for closing government, and CO stands for closing opposition. So basically the C is for closing and the O is for opening. All right. Now, there are 2 things in this particular case that you need to understand. In a BP format, obviously you get a motion, all right? Yeah, in the BP format, you get a motion, okay? Which means that your motion is always going to, like I said, have 2 sides, not more than 2. Because it's absolutely impossible for one to think that it's going to be 4 sides just because there's 4 teams. So how does this work, ma'am, is a valid question to ask here. So basically, let's say you have motion 1. This could be any motion, okay? Now this will only have a proposition versus opposition side. How does this work then in 4 teams? So whichever are the so I told you there's 4 teams: OG, OO, CG, CO. But let's say we make this is blue. The blue teams. The teams in blue are the opposition benches, or the teams. Benches is just like fancy word for teams. And then these teams in green are your government benches. Now, I'm sure most of you must have guessed this by now, that when you're given a topic, there's a government side, or it is also called the side that goes for the motion, and there's an opposition side which goes against the motion. For and against, 2 sides in this particular debate format. But what changes is that 2 sides support 2 teams are on the same side. This means that the government benches are on which side? Can you guys put it in the chat? Which side do you think the government benches are on, OG and CG, for or against? For. Good. Okay, I don't think that we have any wrong answers, so you get it. Now, how does like opposition, like which side, which teams are on the opposition side? Can I have a response to that? Which 2 sides out of these 4 teams, which 2 teams are on op? Do we have a wrong answer? Not quite. Okay, so you understand. So basically, OO and CO are opposition, OG and CG are government. A very fair question to ask here, if you're paying any attention at all, would be how can 2 sides be on the same side? I mean, 2 teams be on the same side and be against each other. So is this about winning a debate with the team that is also on your side? Are there no rankings? No, there are rankings. How does winning work in BP? Then we need to understand that next. You have 4 teams in a room. You can't let any team win over you. This means if you're OG, your government, and government in any debate is supposed to be against opposition. Like that happens everywhere. So OO and CO are like set enemies. They can't be friends. But then what you might think is that, look, OG and CG are 2 sides which are on the same side, 2 teams which are on the same side of the motion. So if, let's say, they support glorification of soldiers, let's say that's the motion. If OG supports glorification of, also just excuse my bad handwriting, I'll redo it if you can't understand what I'm writing, just put it in the chat. Support glorification of soldiers. If OG is doing that, would CG be, and CG, then CG will also be doing the same thing, which is support glorification. I'm writing SG for support glorification. This means that OG and CG literally have no cause to fight between, like for them to fight with each other. What are they contesting each other on then? This is what it means for OG and CG to be against each other. If closing government wants to win over their opening government, they're going to have to give you better arguments than their opening government did, right? So OG is on your side of the motion. They also are glorifying soldiers or like supporting the glorification of soldiers. But if you as closing do it better, then you win the debate. Not because your opening is not on your side, but because they did not explain the motion as well as you did. So closing wins by giving, now this is a technical term you might want to write down, by giving extensions. And I'm spelling it out here. This is OG. So closing government would always win on extensions. Extensions is just a fancy word for new arguments, which are different from OG arguments. So CG says, Judge, we think we should win this debate because our opening did a good job, but we did better because we had newer arguments with better impact and more relevance. Do you understand, everybody? Give me some confirmation, thumbs up, whatever. Others? See, you either ask me a question or you give me a thumbs up. You don't get to confuse me by doing neither of those two things.
Folks, this is interactive. It's okay if you're not understanding something. Feel free to ask. So I can see two hands, Rian and Ruina's and Rishi's.
Yes, let's look at the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, are CO and OO enemies? No, they're not. They couldn't be. See, CO and OO is the same logic as OG and CG. I'll explain this better. Give me a second. Does this mean OG and OO always have an advantage since they have to first pick? Okay, that's a good question. Hold on to that. I haven't come to that just yet. How is OG, OO, CG, and CO decided? Good question again, but you're just jumping the gun. Whatever you're confused about are things we haven't talked about yet. Can we rebut opening government if we are on closing government? Good question. Okay, good questions, but then you'll have to wait. See, it's still like an ongoing sort of a story. So I'll take questions once you want, like, heard me through and through. Meanwhile, make notes. If you don't make notes, you'll be confused tomorrow. So it's not on me. I'm forewarning you. All right. So basically, so far we have understood that OG and CG will be on the same side. OO and CO will be on the same side. The government is always against opening, which means whichever side is against my side, both of those teams are by default teams I don't like. I want them to lose. So OO and CO are out of the game if I'm OG. If I'm OO, what are the teams that I'm obviously supposed to be opposed to because they're on the other side of the house? As OO, who are my obvious sort of enemies? Also, don't call anybody your enemy. I'm just using simplistic terminology right now to help you understand. Nobody is nobody's enemy in the debate room or outside of it. OG, CG, yes. Okay, no wrong answers. Great. So OG and CG are your obvious contenders if you're OO. If you're but your CO will win over you if they give you better, if CO gives better arguments than you do, which means you're also contesting with your CO or your closing side, because if they give better arguments than you do, then they're also going to win over you. So at the end of the day, you're fighting everybody. All right, you're fighting to be the top ranking team in the room. How does ranking work then? This is important to understand. Let's say again, this is room 1. It's the same debate, glorification of soldiers happening. You've got OG, OO, CG, CO going in this order. This is the order in which the debate happens. You can't change it even if you wanted to. Somebody asked me, does opening side have an advantage because they're going first? Well, every bench or every side has an advantage and a disadvantage. Sure, opening gets to go first and that's their advantage. That's their disadvantage because they have to deliver their speech first. So if in the 15 minutes of prep time, they weren't able to think about anything, they will have to go into the debate blank-headed. That's their problem. Closing gets to buy time for themselves. Like even after 15 minutes of prep is over, you will have to first listen to OG, then OO, then your chance will come. You have fairly 30 minutes to think about the case even after 15 minutes of prep time. Does this mean that the closing side is by default better than opening? Definitely not. Because opening can also just make any argument and they will not have to work under the pressure of making new arguments. Do you understand? But by the time if you're closing and if you have to deliver a speech, then there are a lot of people who have already given their speeches before you, which means that there is constant pressure on closing to be new. This pressure does not exist on opening. They can just give you any arguments as in intuitive arguments. So basically what intuition means is the arguments that come to me first, right? The arguments that are at the surface of your consciousness. Like if we talk about a topic, let's say supporting glorification of soldiers, there are some arguments that will come to me naturally. Now the natural arguments are always used by your opening, which means as closing, you have to be really, really smart to look beyond the natural arguments and find like newer arguments, which is more of like an obstacle. So this means opening and closing every side that you are given, they have like their fair share of advantages and disadvantages. You don't have to think that if you've been given OG, you are disadvantaged or anything. Every bench has its own perks and peeves. All right. Now, how does ranking work? And who decides which side you get in the tournament? I know there are going to be a lot of questions on this, so please be all ears instead of asking questions later repeatedly. So sometimes so this is all going to work through a software. All right, this means we don't get in the middle of it deciding who gets OG. So you can get OG thrice in one tournament, and that's absolutely your bad luck, which software gets to decide. You can't come back to us saying, hey, how did I become OG thrice? Because that's the software deciding. This means that there is no set rule of which side you're going to be in the tournament. Sometimes you are OG twice and OO once. Sometimes you are OG OO twice and CG once. Sometimes it's a very fair balance where you are OG once, OO second time, and CG third time. So you have a fair experience of being each of the sides. But like what I want you to, like the mindset with which I want you to approach BP is to think of all of these sides as good workable sides. Okay, because if you develop a preference, then it's not a good thing. We need to be versatile in terms of which sides we like. All right, now how does ranking work? Basically the judge, so there is a judge here, the judge is listening to you and you all delivered your speeches, and there's been 2 members per team, so 8 speakers have delivered their speeches. Now how does ranking work? This is how. Let's say there are 2-3 judges, or there's one judge or 2-3 judges. What happens is that the verdict is only one. Okay, this does not, if even if you have 3 judges in the room, the verdict is going to be one. This means that the judges decide with each other as to who they thought won, and then the chair, who's the leading judge on the panel, decides who the debate should go to and why. Okay, so what they do is they give you rankings. They say, okay, I think OO should come first, OG should come second, CG should come third, and CO should come fourth. So now ranking has happened. Why will OO win? OO will win when it has rebutted its OG and its CG, and when it has made a case good enough which their closing could not find extensions to. That's when OO wins. When does closing win? Closing wins when they have rebutted their opposition, both the teams, and the side that is like their opening, they've done better than them as well. So this is how you win and lose in BP. Is this much understood? Yes or no? I mean, just give me a thumbs up. And ask questions if you want. I mean, I'd be highly surprised if you understand the BP format without questions.
Yeah, we have a few questions, Diksha. So we'll take the ones that are relevant till now, right? And extensions, because quite a few of you are asking, extensions are newer arguments that are coming in Riva. I hope you got that.
Yeah.
Ranking is based on a team. It's not individual. So 2 people are making up a team which are getting ranked.
Okay, I have a lot of direct questions, messages. Let me just
don't DM,
clarify.
put on the group books. So yeah, go ahead.
So do we have to give 3 different speeches for each round on different topics? No. As part of a team, you're supposed to deliver one speech which is 5 minutes long. 5 minutes, not 7, not 8, 5 minutes. Okay, please just etch this in your memory. Don't go wrong with this. 5 minutes of speaking time with 20 seconds to finish your sentence. All right, grace period. Now every speaker gets to speak for 5 minutes, which means every team has a cumulative speaking time of how many minutes now? In the chat, please. If each speaker speaks for 5. 10. Okay, 10:40 is very, very accurate. Cool, yes. So 10 minutes is what you get as a team. Can we interject? Because I mean, I assure you, you'd want to jump out of your chair every time your opposition wants to say something, because that's how tempted you are to intervene, interject, and just tell the other person that what they're saying is wrong. That's not something that you get to do. All right. So the sanctity of the room is such that you get time to say what you want to say during your speech. Outside of that time, you have to stay quiet and listen to other people. Outside of your speaking time, you get to ask questions, but in a very systematic way, which we will cover tomorrow. Okay. So yeah, POIs, Ahan will come to tomorrow. POIs are points of information. Simplified version would be questions that you can ask your other teammates. We'll come to that later.
I just
Now,
like Akshay's question, Nitiksha. One, he's talking about more research time to the point you were making about timing. Does the CG or CO get more research time and get an advantage?
okay, like I said, you will get 15 minutes of prep time regardless of the side that you are on. OG, OO, CG, CO, doesn't quite matter. But by default, what happens is that if you're OG, you're going to be starting the debate. The moment you've entered the debate room, you will be invited to deliver your speech first. This means that closing has to stay quiet for a lot of time, which they can use to make their case. But then that's not prep time. That's just an advantage that you get. But along with that advantage comes the pressure of making new arguments, which opening doesn't have. So, like I said, there's both advantages and disadvantages. Think of it like that. Also, if you make your case during the debate, then you're not going to be able to listen to your opening. And if you don't listen to your opening, you won't know what they said. And if you don't know what they said, then you won't be able to make new arguments because you don't know which the old ones are. You never listened to them in the first place. So you can't use the debating time for prep as prep time, even if you think it can be done behind the scenes. All right. Let's just quickly take the question in the chat. Will both members OG speak first? Then we're coming to that. I'll come to that. That's not covered yet. Can you give examples of topics not covered yet? When does closing win, ma'am? Closing wins when they can give new arguments as opposed to their opening. So let's say I am your opening government. I say I support glorification of soldiers because they do so much on the battlefield and they don't even get their due for it. You say that we also support glorification of soldiers, but not for the reason that our opening gave you, but for a better reason. If you can give a better reason other than soldiers being on the battlefield, then you get to win over me because you gave the judges a new argument besides what your opening said, and you proved that your argument is better analyzed than your openings. So closing wins when they're able to do better than their opening and when they're able to rebut the rest of the teams in the debate. Okay. Opening wins when opening ensures that closing cannot make new arguments because I have literally left no space for you to make new arguments. So opening has to ensure that nobody gets to make new arguments after they have delivered their speeches. They're trying to, I mean, you will constantly try to ensure that closing should, I mean, we should not leave any stone unturned in coming up with a holistic case so that nobody can come up with new arguments once our 10 minutes of speaking time is over. That's how opening wins. All right. Can you give examples of topics? It's going to happen along the way. Ma'am, I do not understand the winning part. That's all right. Practice will clarify it. I don't expect you guys to understand everything about the BB format. All right. So if there are a couple of things which are small in terms of how to win, how do you win, how do you lose, I think that will become clearer as we go through the training session. So don't worry about it this intricately. Can we write our speeches on the laptop or do we have to write it on paper? Either way works as long as you don't have access to the internet. If you're using the internet, you think you're too smart. I mean, sometimes we tend to think that, hey, who's going to find out, etc. Judges have a very keen eye for those kinds of things. If you're using the internet, they will know. I promise you, they will know. So don't get into those things. Try to use the structure that I will give, okay, to come to the right arguments. But you get to rebut and give new points, thus making your case more valid. Yes, Ishan, that's a clarification of sorts. Ma'am, could you repeat the points regarding what each team can do to rank higher? Okay, that's very
We'll come
detailed
to it
sort of a
later.
discussion. Yeah.
Come to it later. Okay, so Nitiksha, maybe we can do a quick view of the screenshot of how the pairings show finally. Now that we've run past this, and I'm just giving you a PDF copy also just for your reference if you want to download.
Should we continue with like the format or like?
No, I'm just doing a recap of the format just once as your pace. I mean, as per your pace. So
I'd like to explain the flow as well, and then we'll show the picture.
Yeah. Sure.
So now look at this. Now, okay, I've told you what OG is supposed to do, O is supposed to do, CG is supposed to do, and CO is supposed to do. What I haven't told you is how it's done. So we've discussed the what of it. What do we do? We haven't discussed the how, right? What's the process? So this is the process now. OG, let's not use yellow ink. OG and OO are the teams that present first. This means that the first speaker on OG is called the Prime Minister, and they are the first speaker in the debate. This is followed by the leader of op, who is the first speaker on OO. After them, the deputy prime minister goes, DPM. Okay, you write the full forms, don't forget, so that you don't forget. And after DPM, the second speaker on OO goes DLO. All right, as simple as that. There's two members on each side. Alternatively, you deliver your speeches. It's never possible for two people of the same team to deliver two consecutive speeches, like one after the other. So first one side delivers their speech, prime minister, then LO, then DPM, then DLO. All right. Now look at this. This part of the debate is called the opening half. The closing doesn't do much in this part. Closing does do something, all right? They do ask you questions that I'll come to later. But besides that, the closing does not intervene. They don't deliver speeches in the opening half. They do nothing. It's a direct contestation between OG and OO in the opening half. Now, second up, you have CG and CO. Same kind of drill between CG and CO as well. They go again, directly clash with each other in what is called the closing half. So soon after opening half, the first so once DLO has delivered their speech, the debate is then carried forward by CG, their first member, who's called the member of government. And after member of government goes the member of opposition. After member of opposition, there's government whip. And after government whip, you've got the opposition whip. So the names of the speakers are different, sure, but the responsibility that each team has are largely the same. You have two speakers, you're supposed to wrap up your case in that time, you're supposed to prove your worth in that time, your case's worth, I mean. And this part of the debate is called the closing half. So the debate is divided into two parts, opening and closing half. Now quickly, now that we have this, okay, how many of you understand this much? Thumbs up, real quick. Do all judges give explanation for motion and all judges give explanation for motion? It's not about, no, that's different, Kanishk. Explanation is given by us. Like if I set the motions, I'll give you explanation, that's okay. Are these roles randomly selected? Yes, this is going to be decided by us. We will tell you if you're OG or OO. What you can decide is that speaker roles. So sometimes you might decide that my teammate should become deputy prime minister, I should be prime minister. In the next round, you can change that. You can be prime minister and your teammate can be deputy. All right, you can change the speaker roles among yourselves, but you don't get to decide if you'll be OG or CGCO. Okay, I'm coming to POIs. I'll give you a sneak peek into that as well because a lot of people are asking. If you didn't understand the names and orders, we'll just quickly go over this again along with the POI explanation. So basically, OG goes first. OG has two members, Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. O has two members, Leader of Op and Deputy Leader of Op. OG goes first. Their first speaker will do the Prime Minister's speech. After that, the first speaker of OO, then OG, then OO. So OG, OO, OG, OO, and then CG, CO, CG, CO. That's how the speakers alternate in the speaking order. All right. If you still don't understand, watch the recording. Like I said, it takes some time. So watch the recording, make yourself comfortable, watch it over and over again until you actually understand. Now, after this, a lot of you are asking, see, a valid question here to ask is that, okay, ma'am, I can win if I'm OG. Let's assume that we're all OG for a minute. For in the sake of giving examples, we're all OG. So we need to win as OG. Sure, ma'am, I'll win over my OO because I'm directly clashing with them. My deputy prime minister will listen to the LO speech and they will rebut them. And we are discussing things with each other. So sure, I think I can take it over OO. But how do I win over CG and CO when I have no means of communicating with them as a team? How is that possible? Right? Do you get the question? So there is only one team who you're directly clashing with, right? As OG, who are you clashing with directly? In the chat, please. Okay, one wrong answer so far. As OG, you are directly clashing with OO because opening half has OG and OO. So you are in the half where OO is also participating. You're directly clashing with OO. Who is CO directly clashing with? Answers in the chat. Good, excellent. Yeah. Okay, stellar. Now you understand. So if I know the teams I'm directly clashing with, then sure, I can win over them because I know what they're saying and I get a chance to listen to them and rebut them. But what do I do about the teams that I'm not even like, I don't even get to interact with? How is this fair? So how this process is made fair then is through the introduction of this concept called POIs, which a lot of your peers are talking about. It's POI stand for points of information. And points of information is just fancy language for questions you get to ask the teams that you are against. Again, same question I'm repeating myself. You only ask a POI to the two teams that you are the obvious enemies of. So if I'm OG, who do you think I can ask POIs to? Who are my obvious opponents? Two teams. Why are you giving me one team? Two teams. Some of you, most of you are giving me the right answer. Yeah, OO, I will ask a POI only to OO and CO because sure, I'm trying to win over CG as well. But I can't ask CG a question because CG is also saying the things that I am saying, right? We are on the same side. So you can't, okay, as OG, you can't ask, yeah, as OG, you can't ask CG a POI, doesn't work that way. And as OO, you can't ask CO a POI. Likewise, CG can't ask you a OG a POI, and CO can't ask OO a POI. So who can ask whom a POI? I'm giving you this table. If you want to screenshot it, you're welcome to do this, but make notes. So OG can ask POIs to OO and CO. OO can ask OG and CG. CG can ask OO and CO can ask OG and CG. Screenshot it, but most of all, do you all understand? Give me a thumbs up. When I ask you a question, give me some emoji. Yeah. Okay, 22 out of 127, not a good count. Okay, all right. Do others have any questions? I'll take questions in the chat. Yeah, I'll show again for the screenshot, don't worry. So the closing side can still ask POIs even after the opening speeches are concluded. Yes, please. Yeah. Are marks deducted if we reject a POI? This is a very important question. Please be yours. No marks are deducted when you don't take a POI. No marks are deducted when you no bonus marks are given if you ask a POI. But then if you take a POI, it's very, very important in BPs to take a POI. And just let me get back to this. If you are, and this is a trick question, okay, whoever answers this is fairly smart. So if you're OG, you have a POI from OO and you have a POI from CO. Both the teams want to ask you a POI. And see, ideally in 5 minute speech, you should only take one POI. If you take more than one, you're like biting more than you can chew. Okay. So take only one POI, decide who you want it from. If you're OG, who will you prefer to take your POI from, OO or CO? In the chat, please. Some of you are saying OO, some of you are saying CO. Do you guys have the facility of unmuting yourself now? Not quite. Okay. So out of those who are saying oh, I want a response, like just one line response. Why oh? Why will you prefer O over CO? Direct opposition. So why I mean, see, okay. So they can't attack, okay, because there are people you are directly clashing against. All right. But then okay, this is exactly the reason why you won't take a POI from your opening. You won't prefer a POI from your opening. Because look at this. This is basic common sense if you get a hang of it. OG is a team. I know what OO is saying. Okay, first of all, you know what they're saying. Secondly, you have the space to rebut them. All right. So you can win over them because you can rebut them and you can listen to them. Now let's look at your dynamic with CG. If you're OG, sorry, with CO, do you know what CO is going to say? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. And do you know what kind of attack CO might have for you until it's too late? No. So why wouldn't you take a POI from CO first, right? I mean, OO I already know about. Do you get it? Think of this as like having a friend who lives very close to you and a friend who doesn't meet you very often. Who will you meet if you had the possibility of meeting both the friends on a weekend first? You'll meet the friend who lives somewhere far away, right? And who you won't get to meet very frequently after that. So O I can deal with because I know what they're going to say. I need to take a POI from my CO because I don't know what they might say. And I need to know what they will say so that they don't just butcher my case when it's time for them to deliver their speech. So if you're O now, this is a new question. If or let's just say if you're CG, whose POI do you prefer out of OO and CO? Okay, this is a smart lot, fairly smart. OO. You will prefer the POI from OO because that's your long diagonal. That's the team you don't get to directly clash with. Fair enough. General rules about POIs, guys. Don't make it like a thesis. It has to end in 15 seconds. Couple of rules, okay? Somebody wanted to screenshot here. Quick. I'll give you 10 seconds. All right. Now, look. When you're asking a POI, these are, again, general guidelines. First of all, question should be shouldn't last for more than 15 seconds. Because understand this, the questions that you ask your opponent are asked in the middle of the opponent's speech. So I'm delivering my speech, delivering my speech, and somebody suddenly says that, hey, I want to ask you a POI. I can either accept it or I can decline it. No bonus marks will be given for accepting, but it's good to accept. And no marks will be deducted for declining the POI. According to the person's response, they will either take it or not take it. If they choose to take it, they will want you to ask your POI and end it in 15 seconds because they don't have time beyond that. You are eating into their time, into their speaking time. Nobody allows that. So have a very crisp POI which you've written beforehand for 15 seconds after you've heard them. Don't just start making your sentences on the spot when you've been given the chance to ask your question, because that way you'll make it run into 30, 45, 50 seconds, which people will not allow. Secondly, there's something called protected and unprotected time in your speech as far as POI is concerned. What does it mean? Let's say you start with the first second and you have 5 minutes to speak. The first minute, this time is your protected time. This means nobody can ask you a POI in this time because this is a time that you are given to introduce your debate uninterrupted. Likewise, from the 4th minute to the 5th minute is your protected time. Nobody gets to ask you a question and disturb you in the first and the last minute. All of this time in between, though, is a time where people might want to ask you a POI. POIs are permitted. All right. This is the rule, the general guidelines for POIs. The other thing is, I see a lot of people doing this. When you're asked a POI, respond to it. You can respond, but there's no counter questioning, right? So if you're not satisfied with somebody's answer, make peace with it. You can't counter question. All right. You can say that we are not satisfied with the answer that our opponent gave in your speech when it's time for you to speak. But you can't say that, hey, you need to continue answering my questions because I'm so not satisfied. You ask a question, they respond to your question. And when you respond to a question, you don't even ask your opponent, hey, have I cleared your POI? Are you satisfied? We don't quite care about whether or not somebody is satisfied. We think this is a befitting response. We give that response and we sit back like we know what we're doing. All right. So basically that. Now with POI, I'm quite through what I wanted to cover today. So I'm going to now quickly switch back to showing you. I'm still sharing my screen, right? You guys can see. Coming to questions, I can see a couple of them. Now I think this particular table will make more sense to you all after all the discussion that we have had in the last 40-45 minutes. So opening government, now the speaker roles within it, what they're called. When we meet tomorrow, if you really want to do something to make yourself better and give yourself a competitive edge, please try to remember the speaker roles and what they are called, and please try to remember this order, so that tomorrow when we speak, you come with a lot of clarity of thought. Is that all right? Because tomorrow what I'm going to tell you is, what does the prime minister do? Like, how should I structure my speech? How is it different from my second speaker? What should I do if I'm closing? What should I do if I'm the whip speaker? Those are the things that we discuss tomorrow. For today, I just want you to understand this entire process with the POI process in alongside this. Okay, so much for today. Now let's answer questions. You can put your questions in the chat now. Think of it as like my concluding remarks for today, and then we'll meet tomorrow after having answered these questions. Okay. When to use POIs? Good question. So you don't ask a POI just because you think it's going to leave an impression. A bad POI doesn't leave an impression. You ask a POI when you genuinely have one, when you really want to ask one. But you should definitely ask the team which you are not directly clashing with a POI. So if I'm CEO, I will definitely try to ask whom a POI? Who will I actively try to ask a POI if I'm CEO? OG. Yeah, because that's the team I don't get to engage with otherwise. If I'm OO, who do I try to ask a POI? Whose speech am I the most attentive to ask a POI? Smart enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's correct. Okay, now let's stop. I think we are losing track of the question that we have in the chat with the responses. Is CEO allowed to rebut OG? Yes, yeah. CEO is allowed to rebut OG. They're supposed to, in fact. If POIs don't lose any points, why is it good to accept them? See, it's good to accept them because this still shows confidence, right? So I'm saying that just answering a POI doesn't get you good points. But if you answer a POI effectively and the judge is impressed by that, then you might have a better speaker score, because that shows clarity of thought. Do you get it? So just answering a POI will not get you good points, but answering a POI very meaningfully in a way that impresses the judge. And by impression, I don't mean you have to quote like old people's quotations. I mean to say, when you're logically appealing or logically responding, then the judge will listen to you. So POIs are a good way to create impression when you know what you're saying. But don't just use POIs to create superficial, shallow impression. Nobody is impressed when you're not making sense logically. All right. What is a whip? Tomorrow, whip speaker and what the whip speaker does. Whip speaker are the last speakers in a debate. That's what you need to know today. What if you finish before the given time? That's perfectly all right. But you shouldn't finish before the given time, because there's so much to say if you're analyzing. So continue analyzing. If you're left with time, give examples. Don't finish before time. Is it after or during a speech? It's during a speech. I told you, protected, unprotected time. Do POIs benefit any team? Yes. If you take them meaningfully and if you ask meaningful questions, they definitely do make a difference. There are no reply speech. That's not within the format. What is a whip tomorrow? Could you give? Don't repeat your questions, guys. That doesn't give you more visibility on the chat. Could you give us a sample POI? Yeah, like, I mean, I could give you a sample POI, but it would make no sense, because a POI is always done in relation to the speech that is being delivered. So let's say somebody on my screen, let's say Anya, delivered a speech and she was saying, hey, glorification of soldiers is really nice because they do so much for us and they kill, and they're on the battlefield and they serve the country. My POI could be, this is what it could look like. Anya, my question to you is that, do you think other professions like teaching and that of doctors is any less important than the soldiers, just because soldiers are dying on the battlefield sometimes, but then doctors' profession is also equally important because they have to go through so much of trauma of sometimes the patients dying, or even though they're giving their best, so on and so forth. So that's what your questions can look like. All right, but 15 seconds crisp, written beforehand. When is the actual debate? 20th of this month, January. So during the first round, we have in every round you have a different OGO, CGCO, and all of you speak in every round. Whip tomorrow. Shwet, don't repeat your questions, please. If the opposite team is not satisfied, will marks be deducted? Not quiet. No. It's not about what the opposite teams thinks of you. It's what about the judge thinks of the debate. You have to convince the judge. When to use POIs, I've already responded. If the POI is flawed, can it be refuted in a speech? Yes. In a speech, you can respond to everything. Outside of the speech, not quiet. Will the reply time for POI be counted in speech time? Yeah, yes. When and how to use POIs? Already responded. Is you already responded? Already responded. Can we read and speak? I mean, you could, but then it's good to have bullet points. You can have bullet points, you can refer to them, you can use your sheets for that, or like Google Docs, whatever you're using. But reading it off a page is definitely not good, because it also like doesn't help you become adaptive. Sometimes you can't follow a set script because things are changing very rapidly in the debate. Maybe you thought this argument will work, but it doesn't seem to be working anymore because the debate has taken a different sort of a twist. Do you understand? So during the first round, we have the OG repeat questions. So bad. I mean, don't repeat your questions. It's what will be referring to our opposite teams as. CO, OO, we think what OO did wrong is so and so things. We think CO could have done better in such and such ways. And we think our opening, our OG, OO, CG, CO, call them that. All right. Okay, I think repeat questions besides this. Do you think does anyone think that the question's been missed out despite being a new? Okay, Kanishk put it in the chat. How do you decline a POI? Just by saying that no, sorry, I'm not going to be taking it. So how people ask a POI is like this. So let's say Arnav is I can see him on my screen right now. So if Arnav is delivering a speech and I want to ask him a POI and this is not his protected time, I will do this. I will use the chat box because this is online debate happening on 20th. I will use the chat box and assume that Arnav is speaking all right now. So I will say POI in the chat, not write the entire question in the chat. Just say POI like I just mentioned. Arnav will know now that Nitiksha wants to ask a question. He will say, no, sorry, I can't take a POI in my speech. My next speaker will take it. Or he will say that, no, I will take the POI after I've made this point. Or, yes, okay, I'll take your POI. Once he says, yes, I'll take your POI, then I unmute myself and ask the question. Okay? No. If you have heard the POI, now Praveen's question is good. If you've heard the POI, then you can't decline it. I mean, then that shows the judge that you don't know the answer to it. So you get the opportunity to decline without listening to the POI only. So are all motions under a broader umbrella? Motions we'll discuss later. Can I accept POIs in my protected time? No. No. It wouldn't be protected time if you could do POIs in that time. Let me see, wait. So since the closing teams have a chance to summarize the side of the debate, they are afforded the ability to make it seem like their arguments held greater weightage. So you can counteract this advantage by asking relevant POIs. That's that. But it doesn't work like that. So the judges know. See, if this bias is what the judges worked on, then closing teams will win all the time, right? But the judges are experienced. They know that we have to listen to everybody carefully. So this doesn't happen. Don't worry about it. Do the POI need to be related to the speech? Yes. Related to the motion, related to the speech, related to what the other side is saying wrong according to you. All three rounds will happen on the same day, which is 20th Jan. All right. Please don't ask the question again. It's very basic. Like you'll get to respond to these questions everywhere. Like if you check your mail and wherever you got notifications about Oxford debate. Yeah, you're supposed to say POI first, not directly start asking. Research we will discuss later, not today. There's no research, by the way. There's a structure which you need to follow to find the right arguments. I'll give it to you. Can we use any form of such information? Yeah, definitely. You can use some information which you already know about, but you can't use statistics. You can't say 50% of the women do this, 50% of the Dalit community, like that. You can't say things of that kind. Yeah, if your answer to the POI like extends into the protected time, that's fine. You can't take a question in the POI in the protected time. You can just definitely continue responding to it in the protected time.
Yeah, just one thing you must keep in mind to that strategy is that you may want to make some points, so don't let the answer of the POI mar the point you were going to make. Like, don't let it overshadow it. So be mindful of that.
Yeah. See, sometimes the POIs that you are being asked are not very relevant. They're just trying to kill your time. So you have to be mindful of those things. Sometimes they're trying to mislead you because the point you were making before the POI was asked was really good. So stick
Yeah.
to the point. Say, I don't care about this POI. I mean, not rudely, but in general, you can say, I think this POI needs answering. We've already done that in a speech. Okay, I think the rest of the questions are a lot about what is again not covered yet. You can't be inquiring about things that haven't been shared yet. Can I rebut if team says I think I believe? Yeah, you can rebut. You can rebut everything that falls within the scope of the other person's speech. Will we refer to the others by name or as delegates? By name. Call them OGO, CGCO. Don't use their first names. Use their speaker position. So I think the Prime Minister did this wrong, or I think that LO could have made their argument better so in such and such, so and so ways. Can we speak in first person? Yes. You can say I think, I believe. That's fine. But when you're referring to the other people, you don't say Nitiksha did this wrong. You say DPM did this wrong.
Yeah. Just
Will
one
you
more
refer to the others? I
thing
think
while you
okay.
answer, Nitisha, is that all of you please understand that we did one session with the convener of Oxford on 6th of January, and the pages that we circulate will have the deck and the recording to that. So that's also one more thing that we'd like you to sort of go over before you come for the session tomorrow. Nitisha, over to you. I'm just exiting because I have a call. I'll just leave it to you.
Yeah, I think now we are pretty much set. I don't see any questions that are related to what we covered today. I see a lot of questions related to what we're going to do tomorrow. So that I'll respond to tomorrow, right? Because it doesn't make sense to confuse you without giving you the theory behind it. We'll meet tomorrow. We're together for 3 more days. You have 3 more hours to just discuss things at length. And I'll respond to every question when the timing's right. So for today, let's call it a day, all right?
Yeah. So the Zoom recording will be shared for this session. I'll just pause it, as well as